So thank you everybody for coming today. This is a preview of a presentation I'm going to be giving on June 20th, at the 10th International Degrowth Conference, the 15th Conference of the European Society for Ecological Economics, held in the city of Pontevedra. That's in Spain. And my topic is the role of spiritual philosophies and communities in supporting and promoting degrowth. And because my travel is sponsored in part by the Gaian Way, I wanted to begin as we often begin our Gaian Guild meetings here in New Orleans with the Homeric hymn to Gaia. Now, this is an adaptation of a new translation by the late Dr. Michael Homan, but it's based on the ancient text from 700 BC or so. To Gaia, mother of all I sing, primeval, oldest being, you comprise everything on earth, the land, and those that take root, and those that move upon the land, the sky, and those who fly through the air, the sea, and all who swim through your waters. All of these are nourished from your bliss. Through you, O Queen, humans are blessed both with children and with harvests. You have the power to give life to humans and also to take life away. Blessed are those whom you delight to honor. They possess everything in abundance, and enough is abundance to the wise. Such is it for those you honor. Revered goddess, unrivaled deity, rejoice, O mother of the gods, wife of twinkling Uranos, for this song. Grant me a cheerful heart. Thank you. And of course, when I make this presentation on the 20th of June, it will be also the summer solstice, when we celebrate the advent of darkness at the seeming height of the sun's power. And coincidentally or otherwise, it's also been designated this year as Global Degrowth Day, when I like to think we are celebrating the advent of degrowth at the seeming height of the growth paradigm. It kind of fits into me poetically. But I wanted to start really with the words of Jennifer Ellen Good. I saw her present at Harvard Divinity School's program for the evolution of spirituality, and it caught my attention because that just happened. She was presenting on degrowth, and she talked a lot about stories, really, that the idea that growth is really a story that we tell ourselves. She said stories are foundational to how we understand who we are and the world in which we live. And we should think of economics as a story. And she actually led me to Thomas King. She quoted Thomas King, the author of The Truth About Stories. He's an indigenous storyteller. And he says basically about stories, well, that's all we are. And that raises for me, I think for all of us, the big question of, well, what are our stories? What are the most important stories? I think we would all have different answers to that question. But what are the most important stories that we share, that we have in common? Well, surprise, one of them is certainly economic growth. And our fascination with growth can be understood largely as a story that we've told ourselves. In fact, I'd go one step further and talk about the myth of growth. Growth is one of our biggest myths. Now, when I use the word myth, I feel I need to expand on that a little bit, because myth really has a dual meaning. In the vernacular, we might refer to myth as just meaning something that's not true. But that's not what I'm actually talking about. I'm thinking of myth more in the way that it's used by folklorists and historians and philosophers. At a societal level, stories may be described as myths, the big stories that shape and express our societal worldviews. In fact, growth is the semi-religious totem of modern societies, capitalist and communist alike, according to Georgios Kallis. And this is not just theoretical, right? The material flows of a society follow the contours of its myths. So to supplant the myth of infinite growth on a finite planet, we would seem to need a new myth, or perhaps a very old one. A new myth that can take its place. What is the myth of degrowth? Well, Thomas Lestar and Stefan Bohm argue that spiritual and religious beliefs generally, and eco-spiritual worldviews in particular, can play a role in sustainability transitions. Indeed, spiritual philosophies and communities promulgate rich mythologies that can serve as a basis for supporting and promoting degrowth. Now, some folks might be skeptical. Religion has been criticized for its role in supporting colonialism and the harmful extractive exploitation of the natural world. And a prime example of this critique is the historian Lynn White's influential 1966 lecture, The Historical Roots of Our Ecologic Crisis. It sparked a long-running debate. This criticism, it's been tempered in recent years, but it remains evident that mainline Christianity has served, at the very least, as a convenient conduit for the promotion of capitalism, consumerism, and a growth paradigm. Of course, it hasn't always been this way. By contrast, early Christianity often promoted simplicity, non-materialism, and kind of a poverty or communal way of living before undergoing a really significant transformation. The Protestant Reformation unleashed forces that contributed to the rise of capitalism. And in more recent times, the prosperity gospel has articulated an ostentatiously consumerist stance. But nevertheless, there are glimmers of possibility that are coming into view. Movements within Christendom and other established world religions, as well as emerging religious movements, are advocating for ecologic wisdom based on faith. One example is the Greater New Orleans Interfaith Climate Coalition. Our numbers are small, but we take inspiration from our forebears, people like, for example, the Quakers. Though small in number, the Hicksite and progressive Quakers became a dominant voice and a moral authority in the United States, pushing for the abolition of slavery, the advancement of civil rights, the anti-nuclear movement. And in much the same way, earth-centered religious expressions could become a driving force for degrowth. The Gaian Way provides another example. Inspired by the seminal work of James Lovelock and Lynn Margulis, the Gaian Way was founded in 2019 by Eric Asadourian with the aim of cultivating an ecocentric philosophy and life path. We've built a community around a shared understanding that we are utterly dependent on, but not separate from, the living earth. And this community collaborates to develop a series of rituals, teachings, and meditative practices. We've also been developing a series of projects, an ecological calendar for use in the schools, an eco-spiritual radio hour, an annual Gaian Book Award, all with the intention of spreading an ecocentric understanding of humans' role in the Gaian system. In accord with our values, we've added non-human voices to the decision-making of the Gaian Way organization. I partner with this tree, this live oak, over 800 years old. It's found in City Park here in New Orleans. The ecocentric understanding fundamentally recognizes the proper and smaller role that humans must play within the Earth family. Thus, degrowth is aligned with Gaian values. Now, the fledgling Gaian community is international, but most participants are located in the United States and Canada, where degrowth is less well known than in Europe. We formed a working group, the Gaian Degrowth Pod, organized by engineering professor John Mulrow, to help fellow Gaians learn about degrowth. And you may note the acronym GDP, which apparently stands for some other things as well. But the countercultural force could, like the Quakers, have an outsized effect on the imaginary, mobilizing and supporting activists and their efforts to spread degrowth and ecocentric paradigms. Another example of this would be the Greater New Orleans Interfaith Climate Coalition. We hosted a guest speaker, Alex Mikulich, on the topic of radical abundance through economic degrowth, part of our educational efforts. It's my feeling that to restore, we to restory. That is, to restore ecological sanity, we must find new stories to express and shape an ecocentric worldview. The Gaia metaphor is such a story, drawing from both modern science and ancient myth. When we see ourselves as a component of Gaia's sacred but finite systems, we desire to live in accord with her grand design, and we recognize the paramount need to change our way of living. I wanted to thank you for your time today and let you know that if you want more information about the Gaian Way, you can check out Gaianism.org. There's more information about the Greater New Orleans Interfaith Climate Coalition at GNOICC.org. The poster that I mentioned, the Cycles of Gaia calendar, you can visit cyclesofgaia.com. If you'd like to listen to that eco-spiritual radio hour, it's at eartheclectic.org. Earth Eclectic is the name of the program. And of course, if you want to learn more about me, there's barteverson.com. So thank you so much for your time, for your attention. That will conclude our recording for today.